But I think I want to kind of talk to you more about. So there are two or three kind of vectors that kind of came out of your conversation, right? So one is themes that we've seen till now, but more importantly, given our experience in the financial services ecosystem, what are those white spaces that founders who are starting up today should be thinking? Is one question that kind of comes to my mind, which we can probably debate a little more about. The second thing is around how are we differentiating between true AI startups and how should we be thinking about it, and and those who are essentially building wrappers on top of global big AI startups, or I don't know if we should even call them startups anymore, big AI enterprises. And the third vector that kind of comes to my mind is essentially from a founder standpoint, right? We have over the um, last kind of decade seen and heard more often that look at the problems around you and try to solve that first, versus when you look at the global examples that we are all quoting in our conversations and we are quoted, they don't necessarily look at their own geography or their own kind of neighborhood to essentially think about what are those problems that they should be looking to solve for, right? I don't think a Perplexity or an OpenAI or a Anthropic, which have kind of emerged in the last 3.5 4 years, or even the more latest ones, have thought about मैं यूएस के सैन फ्रांसिस्को neighborhood या फिर California as a region or US as a region plus Canada, how do I solve problems for them? There are problems, there are enough and more that we can speak at length, but that's not their nazariya when it comes to problem solving. But when it comes to Indian founders and venture ecosystem challenges, the nazariya is always how do I solve India problem first. So let's start with the first one, right? Which is around what exactly are the white spaces that you guys are actually, that you think. I mean, of course, I mean, each of us have our own kind of thesis around white space, but let's start with you, Abhishant.
I think for me, if I look at it, for me, the biggest piece from the point of view of opportunity will lie in frauds of all type, all nature. And in that scheme of thoughts, I think whether it is transaction fraud monitoring, whether it is fraud from the point of view of your lenders who essentially go for the loan defaults and things of that nature, wherein the idea is to knowingly default on something, and so on and so forth. So every single category will have fraud of one or the other nature. Now, within that, one is to essentially look at fraud only from the point of view of centralization of data, and essentially that data being so powerful that it will essentially kind of help anybody who builds on top of that data, and basically data providers and all of that, and then you are in a position to solve for it. So one is that kind of an approach, which of course, which then requires, in our case at least, it requires all the holders of that data to be able to kind of consolidate, provide, pull in, and everything of that nature. Or essentially to look at it from the point of view of some of the models which essentially are zero knowledge proof models, wherein you are in a position to maybe not exactly kind of stop every single fraud, but you are still much, much, much better than what you were earlier.
What other spaces?
Sorry?
What other spaces? So fraud is clearly one that we speak about.
So I think in the last 10 to 15 years, a lot of innovation has happened on the retail side of the use cases. It means like retail banking side of the use cases. And I still feel corporate banking side of the use cases is still not, I mean, very few in the market are there who has actually picked up and solved. But I feel there is a huge gap wherein the people can come up and pick up some corporate banking use cases and can build on top of it. Trade finance is one of such use cases which they can pick it up. CMS is another one, and bunch of other such streams are there. Second, treasury is the third one, and multiple, right? The second, I feel in India, we have seen infrastructure on the payment side, data side, lending side. But when it comes to wealth, right, we have still not seen, except like some large players which are there from an infra point of view, like CAMS and bunch of others, Kavi. But we still feel there is a need of an entity which could be more like a middleware between AMCs and the distribution, right? Very similar to the companies like Atomic, which is there in the US, and like how the wealth has exploded in India. I think that could be an interesting piece to look at, and someone can build around it.